Hi, Rivers. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. How's the tour been going so far?
Really good.
I read that you guys went bowling last night. Is that correct?
Yeah.
How'd you do?
Well, I didn't bowl. I just sat there. Everyone else bowled, though.
Did you seem like everyone have a good time? Yeah. Was that pretty big crew?
Yeah, it was a very large crew, but all three bands, and then quite a few of the crew members, and it was packed.
Has stuff like that been happening a lot on the tour, going out on just random nights of bowling for relaxation, or is that just a spur-of-the-moment thing?
That's the first time it's happened. As my tour manager said, it's really hard to get that many people organized.
So what do you do on the road to relax?
I meditate.
And that's what was that something that Rick Rubin introduced you to? Is that correct, or that's something a process that started happening during the recording of Make Believe?
Yeah, he suggested I get back into meditation, and I snooped around and found this technique called Vipassana, and that's what I do. I do an hour in the morning and then an hour in the evening after sound check and before the show. I've actually been to that center in Washington State a few times.
Is no more foosball before sets, or is that still a tradition, or has that been nixed?
I've seen no evidence of foosball on this tour.
Awkward.
So how's it been working with the foo?
It's been great. It's really inspiring and really challenging to be paired up with one of the most amazing and intense rock bands of our generation. Every night after we play, about 20 minutes later, they come out on stage, and it's just the most explosive, intense rock phenomenon you've ever seen. And it's really inspiring.
It's kind of almost a pairing of opposites in a way, in that the two, yourself, you're painted as sort of a more introspective person, and Dave Grohl is more of the extrovert. Has there been any sort of, I know that you've been friends with Dave and the Foo Fighters for a while, has there been any sort of clash of personalities or anything, nothing controversial, but anything come up where it's been, oh man, I could have never gotten that how out like Dave, or anything like that?
Could have never what?
I could have never screamed like Dave just did on stage or anything. Has there been moments where you've been just in awe?
Yeah, I'm in awe every night. He's just has this endless energy and intensity. And yeah, he's screaming at the top of his lungs night after night for an hour and a half. And I'm really in awe. I don't see how he does it. And then when I see him just backstage hanging out, he still has tons of energy. He's jumping around and listening to Motorhead on 10 and talking in a very animated fashion.
You've been covering Big Me in your sets, right?
Yeah.
How has that been going over? Are the Foo Fighters pretty pleased with that, or has it been?
I don't know. I actually didn't ask them how. I asked them before we did it if they would mind if we did it, and they said, yeah, of course, no big deal. But I don't know how they feel about it now. I imagine if I were them, I would feel relieved, because it's a song their fans want to hear, but I think it's a song that they don't want to play. So they're probably relieved that someone's playing it for them. I know I would be if I have plenty of songs that I'd be happy if someone else played them for me.
Kind of gets tiring playing Buddy Holly every night. No.
That one doesn't seem to bother me, but there's a lot of the old songs, first two records, that I personally don't need to play anymore, but people want to hear them.
Any chance you might break out any of the Go Punishment Nirvana covers in honor of Dave anytime on the tour?
There's definitely a chance. Lately we've been doing Song 2 by Blur, but, we're always looking to try out different fun things.
It's kind of a lavish production for a Weezer gig. Is this the biggest stage production you guys have done?
No, it's actually not. Ours, the Enlightenment tour in 2002 was bigger. I think some of the tours before that were bigger too. This is kind of medium sized for us.
Was that the one with Jimmy Eat World and Tenacious D, the Enlightenment tour, or was that?
Oh, it was Dashboard Confessional.
Okay.
I think as the band voted to pare it down a little bit this time.
So how has your songwriting process evolved from going from the Blue Album some almost 10, 12 years ago to what's happening now with Make Believe?
That's too big of a question. Can't even begin to answer it.
Well, let me ask, is songwriting still a therapeutic way for you to express your emotions?
Yeah, absolutely. That's still one of the great side effects, if not main motives for writing songs, is just the sense of relief you get when you explain something you're feeling in an artistic way.
Well, there was a big lifestyle change for you between Maladroit and Make Believe. How has that come across on the record? You sold your home and sort of you started meditating, sort of simplified things. How is that reflected in the record?
I think I had a lot fewer responsibilities when we were making this record. When we made Maladroit, I was managing Weezer, and I was also managing another band. I was in charge of the whole crew and the whole organization, and I just didn't have the time or the emotional energy to really be sensitive and give my best on that album. And this time around, I really pared my life down, and we hired a manager, we hired a producer. I got rid of my house and a lot of the stuff that was in it because I didn't really need it. And I just started riding the bus again instead of driving around. I just felt very simple and humble, relatively. So I think I was able to really open up and not be afraid, relatively.
Is there anything you miss about your former lifestyle, or do you think you pretty much got your rock star Joneses out of you?
I miss girls. I really do.
It just seems almost like a silly statement coming from you because you're adored by millions, but it just seems like that might be that's part of your inner turmoil, is not being able to be as expressive with women. Or how is that? I guess my question is, it kind of seems like a silly statement coming from you, I guess.
Well, it's not though.
I suppose you're looking more for, it's not necessarily the girls, but the relationship you're missing, or is that?
Yeah. Well, you'd be surprised how little contact I have with the opposite sex. I mean, the guys in my band are male, and so is the crew, almost exclusively, and that's pretty much all I see. Well, the other guys have their wives and or girlfriends, and, oh, wait a minute, I shouldn't have said, wait, is that correct? I'm not sure. Well, they each only have one woman in their lives. I hope that was clear.
Okay.
But, you know, around the same time I started meditating, I took a vow of celibacy, and, you know, that whole side of my life just got shut down. So I'm hoping to find somebody special that I can have a real relationship with, but I don't think it's going to happen on the road.
Almost the hopeless romantic, then.
I have hope.
So how is it different in working with Rick Rubin compared to Rick Ocasek? How is, I guess, from bookending your career at this moment?
Well, in a nutshell, I would say Rick Ocasek is more focused on the studio work, getting great sounds, making a great recording. Rick Rubin is more focused on the pre-production work, making sure the songs are as good as they can be, the lyrics are as good as they can be, and then in rehearsals, making sure that the songs are structured as well as they can be, moving parts of the songs around, that sort of thing. And then once we get in the studio, he's not so involved.
A lot of artists I read that work with Rick Rubin come away with sort of a friendship with Rick. He seems to be more of an artist's producer than someone who's just into making sounds. Is that the case that with you experience with Rick Rubin?
Yeah, that's very much the case. We're still in regular contact and still always talking about music. He's always turning me on to things. He's always there if I need advice.
So you're a pretty prolific songwriter, and as you know, the media monitored the creation of Make Believe, and there are regular postings online of this is what Weezer's doing in the studio. I had read that you had hundreds of songs written for this record, and that there was actually a record scrapped before Make Believe came out. Is that true? Is there something that you actually had a finished product, and you thought, I want to go back and redo everything? Or
no, not at all. I never felt like we had a finished product, not even when we turned in our final album. In fact, I'm still making revisions, and we're still putting on alternate takes of songs on the album now.
But that is something that'd be released in future editions of the album, or is that?
Yeah, on the next pressing, yeah. It's already the third edition of the album that will be coming out.
What sort of tweaks and changes? Are you just like post-production stuff? Or?
Well, the second edition was a different version of Drugs, I think, because we realized that they had used the wrong vocal take and had different lyrics on there, and it was just horrible singing. And this next version we're going to put out has some different melodies and Perfect Situation, different background vocals, and different vocal on This Is Such a Pity also.
So is it ever bothers? Oh, go ahead.
And some different chords also at the end of the song.
Is it ever bothersome for you as an artist to be such a perfectionist, to be able to, I mean, obviously trying to be perfect can't really be a bad thing, but is it ever bothersome to where you just wish you could be like, this is what's out there and this is how it's going to be? Or do you see your albums as always being an evolving artistic expression?
It's not bothersome to me because I feel happy when I come up with a cooler idea. And then we just redo it, or we make a good live recording and put it out as a B-side or something like that. I'm always happy to have better ideas.
So you went back to sort of relationships with opposite sex, and that Pinkerton is probably your most beloved album from fans, and you'd already said that there are a lot of songs from your first and second album you wish you didn't really have to play live. Why do you feel so removed from that specific record?
Well, I don't identify with the lyrics on the record, but apart from that, I love the record. I would definitely contest that it's the most beloved record by our fans, because I can see every night when we play Pinkerton songs, they kind of flop. When we play songs from other albums, there could be a big response. However, there's always about 100 people in the audience that go crazy when I announce a Pinkerton song. But there's such a small minority that I can't accept that it's the most beloved of our albums. Also, it's the album of ours that has sold the least amount of copies. It's interesting, though, because you're not the first person to say that, so I think there's something there.
For me personally, in full disclosure, that album is one of my all-time favorite records. But for me personally, it just resonates. The music and the songs themselves just resonate with me on a level that a lot of records haven't been able to. And I find it sort of...
I would agree with that musically, but lyrically, I find it kind of embarrassing.
I find it sort of ironic that it's pegged by so many people as an influential album, or by so many people who just say that it's like the Godfather of emo type record.
But it's mostly emo type people that say that, and I mean, when you think about it, emo type people constitute a very small percentage of music listeners out there. Most of them are also in bands or they're music writers. And it's those kind of people that I think love that album. And because they're the ones that are writing, they're the ones that are posting on the internet maybe, it starts this false idea that the album is more popular than it actually is.
Do you think that possibly one of the reasons why only, say, 100 people go nuts when you say, I'm going to play Tired of Sex, that is because you're playing in front of tens of thousands of people now? So you don't necessarily get the full crowd as if you were playing in front of a club of like 500?
I'm not sure what the point is.
No point, I guess.
What I meant was that if I say, okay, we're going to play El Scorcho now, maybe 5% of the crowd will go crazy. But if I play the opening chorus to Say It Ain't So, the whole place goes crazy. If we start playing Hash Pipe or We Are All on Drugs, the whole place goes crazy.
Makes sense. So, whatever happened with the rumored Songs from a Black Hole, is that something that will ever see the light of day? Maybe something like your own personal Smile record or something like that?
Well, it has seen the light of day. I mean, I've given it out over the internet. Or it also constitutes the first 4 songs of Pinkerton.
Why was that ditched in favor of Pinkerton?
Very simply because of Matt Sharp's first solo record. I was working on a musical called Songs from the Black Hole. It was going to be our second album about these characters lost out in space, and it was going to have tons of like Moog synthesizers and space effects, and the same font even that Matt ended up using on his first record. And Matt knew about all of that, except for the font, which I think was just a coincidence. And I don't know. He ended up using a lot of those ideas on his first album.
So the first Rentals album is kind of not necessarily a blueprint, but more of a carbon copy, but it had a lot of similarities to what Songs from a Black Hole was going to sound like.
Yeah, and maybe it was just a coincidence, but at the time I got very angry, and I said, I am never going to use a Moog synthesizer again, and I'm not going to release Songs from the Black Hole. And I'm glad that happened, because I think I ended up doing something that was much better. The first 4 songs on Pinkerton, to me, aren't nearly as cool as the rest of the album. And I think that's because I was kind of forced to start over and dig deeper and not resort to gimmickry like keyboards.
And since you and Matt have talked and you've sort of patched things up a little bit, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, even at that time, like I said, I was glad I stopped working on that. And, honestly, I think, I didn't realize it at the time, but I think his first record is great. And in a lot of ways, it turned out much better than what the Black Hole would have been.
Well, and you even did guest vocals on the second Rentals album, correct?
I don't think I did vocals, but I helped him finish off one of the songs. I think he ended up giving me even more credit than I deserved. I think I just kind of gave him an idea for a verse melody or something and a background vocal, and he gave me co-writing credit, which was generous of him.
So what would you be doing now if you weren't in Weezer? What I mean, I know you recently graduated Harvard. Would you be back in school, or would?
No, I didn't graduate. I'm going back to school in February, and I'll graduate in June.
And that's for an English degree, true? All right.
Yeah.
So then I guess what would your career path be? What do you think if you had never experienced any joy of songwriting or any real passion for music? What do you think you'd be doing?
I think music isn't important to me. It's just creating something that brings people joy. It doesn't have to be music.
Have you been enjoying Harvard?
Yeah, it's fun.
Do you still go around? Well, it's probably been a little while, but do you still get unnoticed when you walk around?
For the most part, yeah, but I live in the dorm, so everyone there knows who I am. But they're totally cool, they just treat me like anybody else.
So you're not growing out your beard anymore, kind of trying to be unnoticed?
No. I wasn't trying to be unnoticed before, because back in the Blue Album days, no one had any idea who I was. I was never recognized. So I didn't need the beard to disguise myself.
So is your brother still teaching at the University of Washington, do you know?
Well, I probably shouldn't talk about that.
That's fine. No problem. Let me run back to my question list here. I'm going between desks, computer and a desk, so I apologize for that. What about the cryptic messages in the liner notes that have been made so much out of the liner notes and make believe? I mean, is this really the last record from Weezer, or is it up in the air?
It's up in the air, but in my mind, it's up in the air for every band, for every artist. Who knows for certain that they're going to make another album?
Would you be satisfied with what you've done if this was the last record for Weezer?
Well, I don't think it's perfect, if that's what you mean, but...
I mean, just your career in general.
Well, who can say they're 100% satisfied with their life? But I don't feel like making more albums will necessarily make me feel more satisfied with my life.
I wanted to ask you about your fans. You have a very obsessive fan base. How
Well, I don't think so. I think a certain percentage of them are very obsessive, but there's a much larger majority that are very casual fans.
Do you still shy away from fan interactions, or is it something that just is part of the job now?
Yeah, I don't think we have that much fan interaction. I mean, everything we do is kind of given to the fans, but I don't know how much actual face-to-face contact we have. I mean, besides the shows. Not as much creative collaboration either as we had on Knowledge Right.
Do you still occasionally post on the message boards as Ace, or are those days long gone?
Long gone. That was probably ended before we started working on this last album. And I still post on my blog though, so people get to read what I'm thinking on a pretty regular basis.
Well, that's just about everything I've got for you, Rivers. I really do appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, coming from a fan perspective, and as a critic's perspective as well. So.
Well, thank you.